Magandang buhay! So today, our topic, it is all about social learning theory by Albert Bandura. Learning is a remarkably complex process that is influenced by a wide variety of factors. As most parents are probably very much aware, observation can play a critical role in determining how and what children learn. As the saying goes, kids are very much like sponges, soaking up the experiences they have each and every day. Because learning is so complex, there are many different psychological theories to explain how and why people learn. A psychologist named Albert Bandura proposed a social learning theory which suggests that observation and modeling play a primary role in this process. Bandura's theory moves beyond behavioral theories, which suggests that all behaviors are learned through conditioning, and cognitive theories, which take into account psychological influences such as attention and memory. So, what is social learning theory? During the first half of the 20th century, the behavioral schools of psychology became a dominant force. The behaviorists proposed that all learning was a result of direct experience with the environment through the process of association and reinforcement. Bandura's theory believed that direct reinforcement could not account for all types of learning. For example, children and adults often exhibit learning for things with which they have no direct experience. So, even if you have never swung a baseball bat in your life, you would probably know what to do if someone handed you a bat and told you to try to hit a baseball. So this is because you have seen others perform this action either in person or in television. While the behavioral theories of learning suggested that all learning was the result of associations formed by conditioning, reinforcement, and punishment, Bandura's social learning theory proposed that learning can also occur simply by observing the actions of others. His theory added a social element, arguing that people can learn new information and behaviors by watching other people. Known as observational learning, this type of learning can be used to explain a wide variety of behaviors, including those that often cannot be accounted for by other learning theories. Core concepts. There are three core concepts at the heart of social learning theory. First is the idea that people can learn through observation. Next is the notion that internal mental states are an essential part of this process. Finally, this theory recognizes that just because something has been learned, it does not mean that it will result in a change in behavior. So, what to know about social learning theory? First, people can learn through observation. Second, mental states are important to learning. Third is learning does not necessarily lead to behavior change. People can learn through observation. One of the best-known experiments in the history of psychology involved a doll named Bobo. Bandura demonstrated that children learn and imitate behaviors they have observed in other people. The children in Bandura's study observed an adult acting violently toward a Bobo doll. When the children were later allowed to play in the room with the Bobo doll, they began to imitate the aggressive actions they had previously observed. So, Bandura identified three basic models of observational learning. First is a live model, which involves an actual individual demonstrating or acting out a behavior. Second, a symbolic model, which involves real or fictional characters displaying behaviors in books, films, television programs, or online media. Third is a verbal instructional model, which involves descriptions and explanations of a behavior.
So, as you can see, observational learning does not even necessarily require watching another person to engage in an activity. Hearing verbal instructions, such as listening to a podcast, can lead to learning. We can also learn by reading, hearing, or watching the actions of characters in books and films.
Learning does not necessarily lead to change. So how we determine when something has been learned? In many cases, learning can be seen immediately when the new behavior is displayed. So when you teach a child to ride a bicycle, you can quickly determine if learning has occurred by having the child ride his or her bike unassisted. But sometimes we are able to learn things even though that learning might not be immediately obvious, while behaviorists believe that learning led to a permanent change in behavior. Observational learning demonstrates that people can learn new information without demonstrating new behaviors. Key factors for success. So, it is important to note that not all observed behaviors are effectively learned. Why not? Factors involving both the model and the learner can play a role in whether social learning is successful. Certain requirements and steps must also be followed. So the following steps are involved in the observational learning and modeling process. First is attention. In order to learn, you need to be paying attention. Anything that distracts your attention is going to have a negative effect on observational learning. If the model is interesting or there is a novel aspect of the situation, you are far more likely to dedicate your full attention to learning. Second, retention. The ability to store information is also an important part of the learning process. Retention can be affected by a number of factors, but the ability to pull up information later and act on it is vital to observational learning. Third is reproduction. So once you have paid attention to the model and retained the information, it is time to actually perform the behavior you observe. Further, practice of the learned behavior. Lastly is motivation. Finally, in order for observational learning to be successful, you have to be motivated to imitate the behavior that has been modeled. Reinforcement and punishment play an important role in motivation. So while experiencing these motivators can be highly effective, so can observing others experiencing some type of reinforcement or punishment. For example, if you see another student rewarded with extra credit for being to class on time, you might start to show up a few minutes early each day. In addition to influencing other psychologists, Bandura's social learning theory has had important implications in the field of education. Today, both teachers and parents recognize how important it is to model appropriate behaviors. Other classroom strategies such as encouraging children and building self-efficacy are also rooted in social learning theory. As Bandura observed, life would be incredibly difficult and even dangerous if you had to learn everything you know from personal experience. Observing others plays a vital role in acquiring new knowledge and skills. By understanding how social learning theory works, you can gain a greater appreciation for the powerful role that observation plays in shaping the things we know and the things we do.